Howdy, welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Yes, I am still trying to get my voice back after a 5-star weekend that was highlighted by Magic Round. B, it is 1 o'clock in the morning, so I am trying to keep my volume to a certain level. And C, I'd like to put in a further 2 cents. Just very quickly, there's a lot of talk and a lot of hullabaloo about Magic Round has to stay in Brisbane. It just has to stay in Brisbane. Why can't there be a second Magic Round? Is it genuinely that expensive to put it on in Brisbane every single year? Because for me, it should just always be in Brisbane, right? I think that is the general consensus. But if you want to experiment with a Perth Magic Round or a New Zealand Magic Round, a New Zealand Magic Round would genuinely pop off like my flag just did. I don't see the harm. I don't see why it's so hard just to say, why can't there be 2 Magic Rounds every single year? You have the Heritage Magic Round in Brisbane every single May. That includes the Women's State of Origin. And then you have a second Magic Round deeper into the season, about the month of July or August, where it seems like the attention span seems to drop off for a lot of NRL fans out there, and they all come out and say, well, we don't give a rat's ass about what goes down between round 18 and round 22 sort of thing. Put it there. That'll get some attention. That'll get the NRL a bit more of the heat from that spotlight. So yeah, that's what I'd say, that what you should do with Magic Round. But in any event, let's get stuck into round number 10, which is Women in League Round. This Sunday is also Mother's Day, so let's get stuck into round number 10. Women in League Round for 2025 begins on Thursday night from CommBank Stadium. The Parramatta Eels host the Dolphins. The Eels, they are $1.80 favourites, whereas the Dolphins, they are $2.05 outsiders. The Dolphins, they have travelled to CommBank Stadium this season already, albeit rather unexpectedly, back in round number 1, where they went down narrowly to the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Meanwhile, the Parramatta Eels, they won at CommBank Stadium against the West Tigers about 3 weeks ago, but they were technically the away side on that occasion, and they also went down admirably, I'd say admirably, to the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks last weekend in Magic Round. For the Dolphins, they were a little bit more off, I would say, than what the Parramatta Eels were. They went down to the Sydney Roosters by only, I think, 10 points in the end, but that definitely flatters the Dolphins. So in regards to the team list now, there was a bit of a talk, a bit of a rumour that Zach Lomax would be a very, very sneaky outside chance of coming back this weekend, but that is not going to eventuate. So Sam Tuivasa is out for the Parramatta Eels, and we've got Dylan Walker, Luca Moretti, Sam Rani and Matt Dury that is on the interchange bench for the Parramatta Eels. And then looking now into the Dolphins team, Jeremy Marshall-King is out again for the Dolphins. However, Felice Kaufusi and Kurt Donohoe return to action. Kurt Donohoe is actually deputising for Jeremy Marshall-King, and Felice Kaufusi will be starting in jersey number 10 this weekend alongside Francis Molo. I believe that the Parramatta Eels smashed the the Dolphins in their first ever encounter back in 2023. I can't quite remember what happened last season between the Parramatta Eels and Dolphins, but the Dolphins, I think they are yet to win at CommBank Stadium. This is only their third trip down to the venue, and we know that the Parramatta Eels are a completely different beast down at CommBank Stadium. It's a tricky game to tip because I feel like I should be tipping the Parramatta Eels, but this Dolphins side are now coming off 2 losses in a row. Their defense has faltered. Are the Parramatta Eels going to be that good? The Dolphins were pretty good defensively for a little while there, but the past 2 weeks they have dropped off dramatically. So I'm gonna say that the Parramatta Eels win this game 1-12. Dolphins are going to give this one a red hot crack. I think this could be a really entertaining game of footy, but I'm going to go the Parramatta Eels in this one 1-12. There's 2 games on Friday night. Game number 1 is from McDonald's own stadium. The Knights host the Gold Coast Titans. Newcastle, they are $1.47. The Gold Coast Titans, they are $2.71. Let's go straight into the team list for the Newcastle Knights, and there's not too much change, if any at all. It is the same side that defeated the South Sydney Rabbitohs last week. They are the same 1-17. Meanwhile, there's a bit of change here for the Gold Coast Titans. Primarily, the big talking point is that David Fifita is out indefinitely with an ankle injury. That is enormous. That is an enormous casualty there for the Gold Coast Titans. But Jojo Fifita comes back onto the Sting. Jaden Campbell returns at halfback as well. Khalees Haas, Fermor and Fa'asua Mala'awi. That is the back row. And then the interchange reads Randall, Fa'asua Mala'awi, Hau and Pahulu, Josiah Pahulu. They're in jersey number 17 for the Gold Coast Titans. So these 2 sides met earlier on this season, and the Gold Coast Titans handled Newcastle very comfortably up there on the glitter strip. They're now playing this game in Newcastle, and the home team is something like the home team has won 8 or 10 matches in a row over the past 5 years or thereabouts. It's a pretty imposing stat when it comes to Knights versus Gold Coast Titans contests. Now, the Newcastle Knights, they beat up on a B-string team. It's great that you got 2 points in the bag for the first time in what seems like a month or thereabouts. And he did play an attractive brand of footy. But again, I stress that it was up against a B-string team of the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Meanwhile, the Gold Coast Titans, they scored 2 tries from intercepts. And outside of a random old chip kick from Big Tino, they didn't look like scoring. And I know that it is night and day between the Dogs and the Knights, but the Titans, I know they've got or had outs in Jaden Campbell and Fifita and so on and so forth. But boy, howdy, seeing them in person over these past couple of weeks, I'm so off the Gold Coast Titans. And I hate saying that because I've really wanted them to do well. I think everybody wants to see them do well, man. But it's just so quickly evaporated. The benefit of the doubt that is already small at the start of the season for the Titans, it's gone. Like, the benefit of the doubt is already gone for these Gold Coast Titans, despite powerhouse performances from Big Tino and from Beau Fermor, who was working his ass off. Same with Philip Sammy. There are players there that are being let down, and maybe it's from the players alongside of them. Maybe it's the game plan that Des Hasler is giving them. Maybe it's just not working anymore, and that Des Hasler might have to go. But that we're not too far away from it, but we're far enough away from it just to keep that at bay just for now. There is a sense that I think the Titans could come down and just give the Knights a bit of a slap in the face and say, yeah, you beat a B-string team. Well, besides Fafita and Foran, we're close enough to our full strength team, and we just slapped yous about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Newcastle. So I think the Titans go down despite being on a really bad run of form as of late. I think they can go down and will go down with a chunk of confidence that they can get the job done against the Newcastle Knights. But both these sides, I mean, I think this is a flip of the coin game, despite what the markets say. I am going to go the Newcastle Knights. I kind of want to tip the Titans here. But I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Newcastle Knights in this game, 1-12. The second game on Friday Night Football emanates from Accor Stadium. South Sydney Rabbitohs host the Brisbane Broncos. South Sydney, they are $3.72. The Brisbane Broncos, they are $1.28. First and foremost, Latrell Mitchell is back for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and he will be playing at fullback. We've got Bentley Harpe and Fletcher Myers on the stings, and then we've got Tass and Campbell Graham in the centres. Jaden Sullivan and Jamie Humphreys is the halfback or the halves this weekend, and the forward pack is Jai Arrow, Havili, Kolomatangi, Aitken, Duncan and Hubner. That is the starting forward pack. Gray, Kepi, Mawali and LeBlanc. That is the interchange. And to Vita Totola and Lewis Dodd have been dropped after their pretty awful performance at Magic Round this past weekend. Conversely, for the Brisbane Broncos, their 1-7 is unchanged. So too is their front row. Pakes, Jensen, Piakura and Fletcher Baker is the interchange there for the Brisbane Broncos. And the Broncos, seeing them in person, they looked like that they woke up about half an hour prior to kickoff, didn't they? They scored first, sure, but yeah, it was a very disappointing effort from the Brizzy Broncos. I did tip Penrith. I just got that sense that they would just inflict a fair bit of pain on Brisbane, but I didn't think it would be to the scoreline of what we saw. What we did see from Penrith, and I'll save that for the next conversation, is that we saw the defense of Penrith that they're famous for come back. So Brisbane Broncos, yeah, they looked disinterested, they looked slow, they looked sluggish. Reynolds had a shocker a week after I said I thought he had been in better form to start this season than Nathan Cleary. Thanks, Reno. And then South Sydney Rabbitohs, man, they've broken a mirror somewhere over the past 18 months. They have driven over a black cat on Friday the 13th sometime over the past 2 years or so, because it's been Roosters and Cowboys, I would suggest, that have had the worst injury run over the past year or two, but South Sydney are really starting to make a claim for that, unfortunately, for being the most injury-ravaged team over the past 2 seasons or thereabouts. Are they a chance in this game? With Michael Maguire coming back to his old stomping ground against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, I don't think so. I don't think they're much of a shot. But hey, South Sydney defeated Penrith Panthers earlier this year, albeit with a lot more petrol in the tank than what they are coming out with this weekend. And it is really peculiar that someone like Tavita Totola has been dropped. And no, I don't think he's been in good form over the past month or so, but he is coming off of an ACL and he has had a couple of good games this year. He hasn't had a terrible year, but he's definitely started the year very, very slowly, despite a couple of good games here and there. So to have someone like Totola dropped, that is a massive message that I don't think has been spoken about too much just yet, even though it is Wednesday night, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to say the Brisbane Broncos win this game 1-12. Somehow, some way, despite last weekend, South Sydney can make teams sweat still. They can still pull something from out of the fire. So, but I'm still going to go the Brisbane Broncos, but 1-12. There are 3 games on Super Saturday, and the first game is the main event of the entire weekend for women in league round. The Canberra Raiders host the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The Raiders, they are $1.73. The Bulldogs, they are $2.12 outsiders. Whoa. We have a top of the table clash, first versus second hosting first, and this could be a brilliant game of footy, and it should be. Let's go into the team list now for the Canberra Raiders, and they are pretty much unchanged. However, the asterisk is that Corey Horsburgh is going to undergo a HIA test, a concussion test, sometime over the next 24 hours. We'll know the result of that. It wasn't deemed as a Category 1, so he's got to prove his fitness, so he still could play in this game. He has been named, but he could be a scratching, and we'll find out probably on the Thursday. It won't be a game day scratching. We'll find out, I reckon, a couple of days beforehand. Meanwhile, for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, let's go into their team list. Let's have a good look at this. So they're 1-7. Well, it's sort of unchanged. Matt Burton comes back into the fold after being suspended for a week. Lucky to just get a week just quietly. The forward pack here for the Bulldogs is where the changes are still occurring. So Max King, Marnie and Saluka Fafita, that is the front row. The back row is Kikau, Jacob Preston and Jamin Salmon. The asterisk here is that Jacob Preston tonight was unlucky in downgrading his crusher charge. Therefore, he's going to miss the next 4 weeks. So Preston will not play in this game, which you would probably imagine Curtis Morin would start in the second row because there's no Josh Curran and there's still no Satili Tupanua for the Bulldogs as well. So the interchange reads Kurt Mann, Harry Hayes, Curtis Morin and Bailey Hayward at the moment, but someone on the reserves, maybe a Drew Hutchison or possibly a Lip Hopoi might come into the fold later on this weekend. This could be, look, it would definitely be if the Bulldogs had their 3 players that are suspended in this contest, but that's still not going to change the fact this is going to be a smash mouth game. There's going to be some flares of brilliance, and depending on the weather, it could be a low-scoring game, I think. But the Raiders, they must start really well. That's 3 weeks in a row where they've had to come back from double deficits, and I just don't think that if the Bulldogs get out to a double deficit lead, I don't think that the Raiders will be able to overcome it because, yeah, the Dogs, it's still weird. It's still a bit shaky, but the Dogs' defense is still very good. It is still very good and arguably the best in the NRL still after the first 9 rounds of the competition. Against the Gold Coast Titans, they won it convincingly in the end. They really could have put the foot in big time though. Yeah, I don't think they were quite as merciless. They did throw some silly passes, but Matt Burton comes back in, so maybe that just tightens them up a little bit. Meanwhile, the Canberra Raiders, they just don't know how to die. And I want to bring up a point here about what Denon Kemp said from Bloke in the Bar recently on his most recent podcast, and that was, is this side as good as the 2019 side that made that grand final? And on paper, like, I think I understand what he means, because in these key positions, KO Weeks could be one day just as talented and prove himself to be just as talented as a Chance Nickel-Klugstar. We've got Ethan Strange floating around that is still catching teams off guard, and he's warming up into the season like KO Weeks is warming up into the season. And Savalia Tamale, yes, Jordan Rapana is elite. He is a Canberra Raiders legend, but this Tamale is a different kettle of fish, and he's absolutely killing it. So these players, they're not as experienced as that 2019 side was or is, but they look to be just as talented, but they've got a lot to prove still. This is still a young side, and I'm still very weary about a young team that starts hot, and then come the second half of the year where Hudson Young and Corey Horsburgh, they're going to play State of Origin this year. And so the younger fellas are going to have to step up a bit in the middle portion. I'm still just a bit concerned about a young team that starts hot. They might fade out still. That's not me being cheeky by putting faders next to Raiders. I'm not being cheeky. I'm genuinely saying that there is still a chance, because it's only round 10, that this young Raiders team who have started so well, they could still fade come the later half of the season, which is coming up really, really fast. But they've done so much good work already that I don't think they're going to miss the top 8, but maybe they might lose enough momentum where they might miss the top 4. I'm going to tip the Canberra Raiders here. And I don't want to sound biased, because I think you all know by now that I have a very deep soft spot for the Canberra Raiders. But Preston is a massive loss, and without Tupanua and Josh Curran, it's a fair bit. Max King is up to it for sure, and so too is Kikau. Saluka Fafita has had a good year as well. They're going to miss a fair bit of punch, but then again, Harry Hayes could come into the fold, and this could be a breakout game for Harry Hayes as well. So up against this forward pack, especially if Horsburgh is deemed fit to play, this should be a smash mouth classic. I'm going to tip the Canberra Raiders to win this one, 1-12, and go equal with the Bulldogs on top of the NRL ladder after round number 10. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. from Wynn Stadium in Wollongong, the St George Illawarra Dragons host the New Zealand Warriors. Dragons, they are $2.14. The Warriors, they are $1.71. Going into the team list for the Dragons now, it looks like that there's just one change. Emre Gula is out, and the young man Pacifici Tonga will be on the bench. So the interchange reads Little DeBellin and Joseph Leilua. Luciano Leilua, my goodness. Luciano Leilua. Dylan Egan starts in the second row alongside Jaden Sewer and Hamish Stewart in the back row. For the New Zealand Warriors, there are a couple of changes here and one potential change. Big potential change. Dallin Wateen-Zelezniak plays his first game for 2025 since he broke his forearm, I think it was, back in the trials. So that means it's Chance, DWZ, Pompey, Capewell and Tuapiki, the back 5, and the halves remain the same as Harris DeVita and Metcalf. The forward pack reads Ford, Egan and Barnett, Halasima, Niakure and Clark. That is the back row. The interchange is Healy, Laban, Valmalga and Afoa. Importantly, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has been named in the reserves. I don't know who he would be coming on for. You would suggest that maybe Kirk Capewell would revert back to the second row, and maybe Niakure or Halasima start from the bench, and then possibly a Foa or a Samuel Healy does drop out of the side completely. But RTS is there on the reserve, so he could be this week or he could be next week. The New Zealand Warriors, they have a terrible record in Wollongong, and they it was a typical kind of Warriors performance for about 70 minutes where they look great and then they look like they're going to absolutely stuff it. But that 10-minute period there where the Cowboys couldn't crack them was something else. That 10-minute period there from the Warriors was something else that we don't usually see from them. And I don't know if this is actually like fact or whatever, this is just my opinion, but it looks like that Andrew Webster has finally cracked the code and he's just slowly ingraining in this Warriors culture and next man up mentality. I really like what Andrew Webster's doing. I wish I could explain it better, but it just looks like that the Warriors have a next man up mentality, and I don't think we've seen that since the real early 2000s at the very least, man. So really excited about the Warriors. Meanwhile, the St. George Illawarra Dragons, they're still chopping and changing their halves almost as much as the Newcastle Knights are these days, aren't they? So, yeah, we've got King Togia in jersey number 7 alongside Kyle Flanagan. King Togia did some good things last weekend, but they need something else, or they need something more, and maybe that's not in the halves. But yeah, they still got close to the Tigers, and they're going to give this Warriors side a hell of a run for their money. This is now 2 weeks in a row now. I think the Warriors have been on the road, so it's going to be a big ask from them. But look, how can you tip against the Warriors at this point in time? I can see the Dragons causing the upset. I can see them causing the upset because I think that they can bruise them just as much as the Warriors are going to bruise them this weekend. But I'm going to tip the Warriors to win this game 1-12. The third game on Super Saturday emanates from QCB Stadium. The Cowboys host the Panthers. North Queensland are $2.40. The Panthers are $1.58. There is only one change here for the Cowboys. Ruben Cotter is out for the next couple of games due to suspension. That brings in, however, Thomas McKaylee, far out. Finally, big kamikaze McKaylee is coming in on the interchange bench in jersey number 15. So therefore, Sam McIntyre will be starting in the lock position. For the Penrith Panthers, it just seems to happen every single frigging time that we play them. They have a couple of players returning this weekend, one of them being Brian To'o. It's going to be his first game in about 5 to 6 weeks. That is a massive, massive inclusion. Then we've also got Mitch Kenny that is back in at the hooker role, and the interchange reads Schneider, Henry, Patia, and Tom Jenkins in jersey 17. I don't know about that selection. You either have him at the starting wing or you don't have him in at all, in my opinion. It may be insurance policy for Brian To'o if that hammy goes again. Touch wood that it does not go again this Saturday. But I guess when you've got Papali'i, Liam Martin and Isaiah Yeo that can all play 80 minutes, I mean, I guess you can afford to have just the two props on the interchange bench and have like just a sparky utility in jersey number 17 and jersey number 14 as well. So the last time that these two sides met was earlier this year, back in round 5, and the Cowboys defeated the Penrith Panthers down at CommBank Stadium. So they can take a lot of confidence out of that, North Queensland. But Brian To'o was not playing in that game, and the referees had themselves quite a night out as well during that game. But it did not alter the fact that that was still, or is still, one of the best games of 2025 to date. Call me biased, I don't give a rat's ass. That game was friggin' spectacular between the Panthers and the Cowboys. It was thriller-minute stuff between those two clubs. So some of the stats out of that game, well, Penrith Panthers missed double the amount of the Cowboys in tackles, and Cowboys missed 25 tackles that night. Now, on the opposite side of that same coin, however, ineffective tackles, it was something like 20-5, and it was the Cowboys that lost that stat. So they need to fall asleep on them just a little bit longer, just a second longer, to the Cowboys. But they completed really, really high, and they played very, very fast. As a matter of fact, it's probably their best start to a match that they've had all season long. And then sort of since then, they've started slow. So you need to get back to starting fast like you did against the Penrith Panthers. The other stat that sticks out to me as well is that the tackle breaks was something like, I think it was 30-9, or maybe it was 25-5 or something like that. But the Cowboys' tackle breaks, they really dominated that stat in that game, even though, again, Brian To'o and I think it was Jack Cole that played that game. So Brian To'o was out for that game, and it was Jack Cole that played. Now, this weekend, it's Blaze Talangi who's playing in the 5'8" slot. The Panthers, they got back to their defensive best, but the concern is that we've seen them, have a flash in the pan here, and then they've just lost the next game when we all thought, they're back. What scares me about the Panthers this weekend is, they won, and there's still a possibility that they could lose their next game, but there's two things that stick out to me. And the first one being is that in the first 10 weeks, we've already seen teams play each other twice, and there's been a lot of games that have been split. One team has won one of the contests, the other team has won the second, and the Cowboys won the first, right? So that scares me that the ledger might be equal at the end of round 10. The other thing too is that the Panthers defense was insane. It was back to its regular elite best last weekend against the Broncos. That's the first time we really saw it. We have seen it in 2025, so that scares me a little bit. But this Cowboys side, if they start as well as they did back in round number 5, and if they continue to play like they did in the second half, like they did against the New Zealand Warriors, they're an enormous shout. Despite no Ruben Cotter, they are an enormous shout, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a thriller. I believe that the boys can do it. We've seen them put in some really elite performances over the past 5 to 6 weeks, and they can do it. So let's go North Queensland Cowboys, put it on their chin, and they'll win 1-12 this Saturday night. Getting into Mother's Day, the Sunday, there are 2 matches, and match number 1 is from Amy Park. The Melbourne Storm host the West Tigers. Melbourne, they are $1.17. The West Tigers are $5.10. I understand that the Tigers leaked 28 points against the Dragons this past weekend, which made the scoreline look ultra flattering to the St. George Illawarra Dragons. But the Tigers are playing some really plucky footy, and they've been known to cause a boil over against Melbourne in recent-ish times. I think there is tremendous value in the Tigers this weekend, not head-to-head, but you could find a try scorer or two, I reckon, on the Tigers this weekend at a pretty large number as well. So going into the Melbourne Storm team list, they are unchanged, really, by the looks of things. Nelson Asofa-Solomona has been named on the reserves again, but they are unchanged after last weekend's loss to the Canberra Raiders. And then the West Tigers, it looks like that they too are unchanged. So both teams who played last weekend are unchanged coming into this contest. Melbourne Storm, they raced out to that lead, and they did, I think, score another try later on. But it was really that first half burst, or the first half of the first half burst, that got the Storm that lead, and then they didn't really look good in that second half in any event, did they? And then meanwhile for the West Tigers, they got a massive piece of luck with Jaden Sewer dropping that ball right on halftime. But I thought, despite the 6-point difference between the two, I thought that there was about a 16-point difference between the two. I thought the West Tigers were that much better than the Dragons. But look, I can't go past the Melbourne Storm here, but at $5.10, you can definitely find some value about the West Tigers, but I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm here. I'll say 13 plus. And the final game of Women in League round is from Four Pines Park. Manly host Cronulla, and the Manly Sea Eagles, who are coming off a bye, are the favourites in this game at $1.64. The Sharks, they are $2.27. Okay. Going into the team list now for the Manly Seagulls, let's go through it all. So we've got Trbojevic, Saab, Kohler, Garrick, Hopewadi, Brooks, and DCE. The forward pack is Jake Trbojevic, he returns, Jake Simpkin and Takeaho. The back row is Olakawatu, Ben Trbojevic, and Tavanga is in the lock. And the interchange reads Talau at 14, Waddell, Bullymore, and Nathan Brown. Just for a second there, I thought it was looking a little bit small, that interchange bench, but then Nathan Brown popped up in jersey number 17. For the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks now, the back line is unchanged. We've got Talakai out due to a concussion. So the back row for the Sharks is Nikora, Burns, and McInnes. And interchange reads Daniel Atkinson is the new face in 14, with Jesse Colquhoun, Halanuele, and Hazelton in jersey number 17. These two sides met back in Perth approximately a month ago. The Sharks got the better on that occasion, and I think the scoreline flattered the Manly Sea Eagles as well. It was, the Sharks I think only won by 10, but it felt like they won by 20. But these two sides, I think, maybe not the worst or best, however way you want to put it, but you don't know what you're going to get with Manly and Cronulla every single week. The Sharks, over the past fortnight, they have gone down to the Tigers, who are a plucky team, but are well below the Sharks, but the Sharks have lost. And then, despite the sin bin being a huge factor, I thought Parramatta got pretty friggin' close to the Sharks. And if it wasn't, again, for Will Kennedy, who is having a wower. I tried not to swear then. Will Kennedy is having an absolutely stunning year, and it's wild to see. I'm so happy for him, man. But if it wasn't for Will Kennedy again, man, the Eels, bro, they were right there next to him for a really long time. And I know, again, the sin bin was a factor in that game, but egad. Now, the Sharks have dominated Manly for the better part of 4 or 5 years now. But still, the hoodoo remains. I still can't get it out of my head that Manly, they are the bogey side. They really are. They're the bogey side for the Sharks, despite 4 or 5 years now of constant success for the Sharks over the Sea Eagles. And the stat that I said before, that we've seen a lot of teams face each other twice already this season, and those results have been split. Sharks won the last one, and I can't believe the Sharks are sitting at $2.20 plus as well. They should be coming into the game at least as equal favourites at $1.90. That's kind of wild to me. But it also scares me because, again, like I said a week or two ago, what do the bookies know that we don't? What do the bookies know? So in saying that, I'm going to feel like a real goose, but this is going to be a close game. This should, on paper, it does look like a close game. And Manly, they need to win this one. Like, it's not must win. It's not must win for Manly, but it'd be a good 2 points to get against an opposition that is top 6, but is really knocking on the door of top 4. So Manly, I'm actually going to tip. I'm going to tip Manly to win this game 1-12. Howdy, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Sorry I was down with the voice and down with the volume. I hope that all made sense and doesn't sound too yucky or whatever, but thank you very much for your constant support. Enjoy the weekend. It is Mother's Day this Sunday. It is Women in League round, so get around them, and I'll speak to you guys the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.